The keeper said that in order to escape Hellshire Mist, we would have to make our way out of the water temple. There were several locations we would have to visit in order: the abandoned church, the graveyard, the greenhouse, and finally the maze. At the end of the path, the keeper mentioned a pillar. He said that its touch would provide a vision of an invisible road that would lead to a castle, far from the forest. Perhaps that's where our friend went.
Heed my warning, Guardians. The forest is rife with undead creatures and dubious beings, all whom follow the will of Raloth.
We made our way through a tunnel. The passage was rich in moisture and moss. We closed the gate to the water temple behind us and abandoned the shadows of the underground pools. At the end of the mossy tunnel was a ladder. We ascended it.
The light of the outside world penetrated through the rims of an abandoned church.
The structure was ancient.
And yet, I could hear the whispers of archaic spirits by the dark corners of this place.
Surely the church was haunted, but the spirits meant no harm. This was a tranquil place. However, I had my eye on the sword that housed itself on my back.
We were ready to fight again when necessary.
The invisible spirits, I feel, simply observed us. Perhaps they even welcomed us here.
There was a door by the wall. It was covered in moss, just as the other furniture within the church. What enchanted me was the noise of the outside rain hitting the roof. If I hadn't been so hyper-vigilant, I surely could have found some shut-eye here. But we were on a mission. There was no time for rest.
The door handle was rusty and loose, however. We managed to find passage through the gateway. We were exposed to the outside world once again, however. The area was devoid of any precarious winds. Within the spire of endless trees, the rain engulfed the local vegetation, leaving behind a trail of mist.
Do you have any idea where the graveyard could be?
I don't know. I suggest we follow the trail up ahead.
Roger that. Remember what the keeper said, though. If we follow the trail, we should expect company.
I know.
Despite meeting unfortunate circumstances, I allowed myself to sustain high spirits. I summoned the golden chakra blade and briefly observed how the rain met its ancient metal. The weapon was full of star energy, pulsating within my grasp. My sword was a tool of justice, not used in anger, not used for vengeance. However, my perspectives on using a tool in warfare would change in time. You will see why later. By that time, Storm had already scouted the lushly terrain. I felt a certain form of comfort. This place, despite shrouded in enigmas, was somewhat tranquil.
It's probably the rain. You always liked the rain.
Ain't that the truth?
Do you see that tree stump over there? It's by those palm trees over there.
It took me a moment to realize what he was talking about. Before I remembered my sword in hand, flickers of light manifested themselves on the bark of a tree. There were sparks.
This is probably what the keeper talked about earlier.
The light will show the way to the Pillar of Truth, starting by the graveyard.
Let's go. We have no time to waste. The longer we hesitate, the more danger Mark will face.
We followed the light. Our boots met with the muddy ground of the forest. Step by step, we made our way through the lushly terrain. There was a fog that engulfed the gargantuan trees. We made passage through the opaque mist, hoping we would find a way out of this place. Ancient structures faded in from the fog.
The sparks became dim and almost evaporated in the wet mist.
Yet we sustained our hopes.
I suggest we keep walking. We should keep going this way. Hopefully we find something.
At that moment, my sensations of peace and tranquility twisted into a knot of fear and anxiety. By one of the trees before us was a statue. The inanimate object resembled a human skeleton, holding a sword. Adrenaline pumped through my veins, and I was ready to fight.
I summoned my blade. It seemed as if the more we looked away, the more statues appeared. This sight was elusive.
We have to stay focused. Come on, let's keep walking. I think we're being tricked.
Wait. By this time, the statues emanated a viridescent glow, a color that shared the forest's curse. Their eyes burned with malevolent intent, alien in stature.
The statues began to move.
Some of the skeletal statues morphed into the forest's trees, and in turn, summoned the wrath of Raloth.
The closer we get to our destination, the more danger we will face. He knows we're getting close, and he doesn't like it.
A group of skeletal swordsmen elevated their weapons and rushed towards us with deadly force.
Watch out!
We dodged the attacks of the skeletons. Surprisingly, their technique was sufficient enough to stagger us. Swords clashed beneath the mountainous mists and trees of the forest.
They know our technique. That's impossible.
They don't. They're just adapting to our offense.
The bones of the now inanimate skeletons, drowned in the mossy ground, bold yet forgotten.
As we defeated the skeletons, the mists of the forest diminished in size, and before us manifested an image of stones, organized in a linear pattern. There was a portcullis gate and metal fences guarding this area.
The graveyard.
We have to find the pillar. Its light energy will show us the way to the castle. With sword in hand, we proceeded with caution.
We searched the area thoroughly as the rain engulfed us.
Do you notice anything, Clay?
No, but I'll keep looking.
I noticed an archaic insignia on one of the tombstones. The insignia pulsated in a viridescent light, one similar to the eyes of the skeletons. It must be Raloth's energy, his influence spreading across the cursed forest. A name would appear on the tombstone's smooth surface. Clay strolled beside me. I'm sorry you had to see that. Clay stood silent in his stature and avoided the letters on the tombstone. He faced the grass on the ground and closed his eyes. A warm wind blew across the branches of the forest. Are you okay? He hesitated and spoke silently.
That's not possible.
Clay, we're being manipulated. The forest, the creatures, these stones, everything, it's all a trick. She's one with the universe now.
Yeah.
Listen to your intuition, Clay. You know this is not real. Raloth is a master of the arcane arts and a deceiver. The letters on the tombstone vanished, leaving behind viridescent particles that faded into the rainfall. I told you, don't believe these lies, my young friend.
It took me several seconds to retain my composure. I held back tears and I could feel my grief almost consume my soul. Storm lowered his weapon on the ground and placed his armored hand on my shoulder, smiling.
Don't be afraid. With time, all wounds will heal.
We continued investigating the graveyard and found ourselves looking at decayed architecture from the mossy remains of a chapel.
The interior of the chapel was exposed to the rainy world. The place was infested with shrubbery. However, there was something glassy appearing on an exposed, refined platform.
Is this what we're looking for?
The sparks illuminated on top of the shrubbery before us.
The glassy structure lit up in a white coloration. It almost blinded us. My chakra blade pulsated with star energy before the apparition.
It's one of the pillars.
The keeper said we need to touch the pillar to unveil the path to the castle.
Let's go. I have a feeling we're getting closer to solving our mystery. Maybe this is where Mark went.
With my spirits in check, I jogged towards the glassy pillar and removed any loose leaves and moss that shrouded its structure. I approached the pillar with my hand.
Wait. I think I should do this. We don't know what will happen.
No. I got this. I gave Storm a grim yet precarious look. I smiled with eagerness and briefly elevated my sword.
His look somewhat frightened me, but I knew I could count on him. All right then.
Do you see that?
What? Oh, Jesus.
Clouds formed themselves by the graveyard's entrance and subtly approached us.
Not again. We should do this quick and get out of here. I sense Raloth is onto us.
The sight before us was ominous in nature. We couldn't identify what was behind that fog, but we both sensed imminent danger.
I elevated my sword to face the unknown. If you're going to touch that pillar to unveil its magic, you might as well do it quick.
All right. I raised my chakra blade and...
What the fuck? Clay! As the light of the pillar consumed Clay's essence, he collapsed onto the wet grass, his body lifeless. The sudden yet unpredictable outcome to his action perplexed me in times of inevitable conflict. I kneeled before the swordsman. As I attempted to resuscitate my companion, his body deteriorated. His soul abandoned him by the loss of his consciousness. I quickly checked for a pulse. There was none. The fog grew closer towards me, and I raised my sword once again. Several skeletal warriors with blades manifested themselves and approached me. They engaged me with malevolent intent. At that moment, I didn't know what to do. I just lost a swordsman. Metal clashed, my mind broken. With a last bit of effort, I slayed some of the skeleton warriors and attempted to defend myself further. Their swords met my armor, but my anger of righteousness and grief ensured my survival. I suffered several wounds due to my perplexity. Their swords met my skin. They were but superficial cuts. Clay was gone, and I was on my own, on the hunt for Rayloth and Mark. With my last ounce of rage, I decimated my enemy. I sat onto the mossy ground, wounded, as the bones of my enemy lay scattered around my presence. Amidst the violence and perpetual torment, I thought to myself, I'm alone again.